When I was a kid, I wanted to build an outdoor railroad with our G-scale trains, but my dad said that our backyard was too hilly to do it. Well, thankfully, my dad's a big kid too, and in 2018, he built the White Trestle Railroad. This is a single line that goes around the pool and the backyard at their house. And it's got some pretty unique tricks up its sleeve, so I wanted to give you a look at this unique outdoor layout. So tag along for a quick tour of the line and the engines of the White Trestle Railroad. Let's start at the engine house. This G-scale layout has storage on this siding for engines on one half of the engine house, and the other half is not only a platform for passengers, but also can be opened up to reveal the transformer and all of your electronic hookups in here. It's pretty clever and it's weatherproof, so this stays outside, and whether it's raining or snowing or whatever, everything's protected in there. You can store an engine and a couple cars on one side of it, and there's also some bus wiring in there for the rest of the track. And again, the other side is used to house the transformer. And because of the roof design, it's kind of a clever double-hinged layout. He's even got actual shingles on this thing, so it's pretty resilient. The White Trestle Railroad earns its name because nearly all of the line is elevated up on these custom-built white bridges. And it has to be this way because, well, as I mentioned before, the backyard's grade is just too steep to put a train set on. So other than the engine house I just showed you, everything else is up on these bridges because, well, it kind of has to be. But it works really well for a garden railroad because instead of going through the plants and having to clear things out, it goes over them. So the rose bushes and everything else kind of grow up and around the line. This makes maintenance a little bit tricky because you kind of have to treat it like a power line. You've got to keep things far enough away from it not to interfere with the track, but the pros far outweigh the cons. In addition to the bridges and the gardens around them, there's a few little scenes that have been made, like this one's made out of birdhouses, and they kind of come and go. It seems like these buildings don't seem to stand up quite as well as my dad's handiwork on the engine house, but they add a nice little extra flavor to the line. It's just fun to watch them go by. These bridges that make up the White Trestle Railroad are mostly built of wood and metal, and every now and then weather kind of comes into play. Obviously, the metal stuff can hold up over the test of time, but the wooden bridges get a little bit tricky sometimes, and expansion and contraction can affect track connections, as can just general oxidation and stuff getting on the line. So if the line hasn't been used in a little while, it's usually good to hit it with a little bit of a sanding block. Due to space constraints with the White Trestle Railroad, there's no turnaround sections, so these engines do have to reverse back over the line. And sometimes that can cause issues depending on the types of cars or trains that you're running. But that brings me to the engines that are used. These are all G-scale trains, and the most common sight around these rails is this custom-built set that my dad thought up. Both coaches have cow catchers and lights on either end, so you can't really tell whether it's coming or going. And that's perfect for the nature of this whole railroad. The engine itself is actually made up of two LGB cabs, and they both have the number 2 printed on them, so we call it 2-2. It's got some other neat details on it, and he did a really nice job of kind of blending the two together. They're sitting on top of a Playmobil diesel frame and motor, and it runs like a treat. It's probably the most reliable thing on the whole line. This setup is also ideal, not just because you can't tell, really which way it's going, but also because there's a car on the front and on the back. It's a very balanced setup, and even though the cars are kind of light, the likelihood of pushing one over the edge on a tight corner if you're coming in too quick is pretty low because 2-2's got it handled. When the trains aren't running around under power, there's another common sight on these rails, and that's the Santa Fe steam engine. This is an old broken Lionel engine that my dad took the guts out of, so that way when my son comes over and wants to play, sometimes he just likes rolling things around on the tracks. But we don't want to ruin an engine that works, like this one here. So as those roll around, this guy's got no electronics left in him, and he just likes watching the pistons go around. It's a lot of fun for him to play with, and because the track is all pretty much his height, it kind of works out perfectly. He really looks forward to moving this engine around on the line by himself, and other than tripping over rocks and trying to make sure that we're not walking into bushes or getting thorns or things like that going on, it tends to go pretty well. It rolls really well. He's got a hookup on the back so it can hook up to all of the other Playmobil cars that we have on here.
Push them through and pick them
And
up on the
we've
other
even
side.
managed to fit a little figurine inside the cab that definitely wasn't from Lionel. I'm pretty sure it's a smaller Playmobil figure, and those are pretty common to see around here. It only really runs out of fun when we run out of track, but that's alright, we just double back through the whole thing again. We can really run any engine, and thanks to the awesome layout downstairs, there's a ton of cool engines we could run outside, but for the most part, there's a couple that are just regulated for outdoor use, while the rest stay down here with the indoor layout. If you haven't seen the video on this setup, it's crazy awesome, so check out the video in the link in the description down below. But yeah, there's a reason there's a ton of awesome stuff outside, because inside's pretty cool too. Every now and then we get a visitor from the inside take a spin on the tracks outside, but for the most part, there's just a handful of trains that he's comfortable with running outside, just in case something falls off or something goes wrong, or you just don't want to get things dirty that are nice and clean inside on the rails. Since construction first began back in 2018, this line has evolved and changed, and some of it's just been a bit of a learning curve, trying to make sure that the track is laid right, making sure that, things aren't falling apart, different construction techniques. The weather has certainly played a role, especially when part of the fence collapsed during a windstorm that took part of the track with it. So yeah, this thing's been through the ringer, but it's been really fun helping my dad work on this train set. This has definitely been a retirement project for him, but it's nice knowing that I'm still needed, that he still needs a hand. It's also been great sharing this with family and friends, so when they come over and visit to jump in the pool, leave the trains running in the background. It's just a neat element that you really don't get anywhere else. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this quick look at the White Trestle Railroad. If you got questions about it, let me know. I know most of the stuff about this thing, but if I don't, I'm sure my dad will be happy to help me answer some of your questions too. So like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you on the next one.